You're listening to the Law Careers Net podcast, a monthly podcast designed to give you everything you need to know about becoming a lawyer.
Welcome back to the Law Careers Net podcast. What separates a successful law firm application from one that gets overlooked? We're joined by BPP University careers expert Stephen Bloomer, who draws on more than a decade of experience helping aspiring lawyers navigate the recruitment process, and aspiring solicitor Ronak, who shares his own experiences of the application cycle, including the challenges and lessons learned along the way. Together they explore what recruiters are really looking for, how to research law firms effectively, and the best ways to structure your application answers to stand out from the competition. Stephen also shares practical advice on avoiding common mistakes, demonstrating your motivation and making every application count, as well as insights into the qualification process and the courses and assessments you need to complete to make it as a solicitor. Whether you're preparing your first vacation scheme application, targeting training contracts, or simply looking to improve your success rate, this episode is packed with actionable insights to help you approach the recruitment process with confidence. For now, over to Stephen and Ronak.
Hello, Ronak. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing really well, Steve. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today. Really looking forward to finding out a little bit more about you and about how we can help you. We've not met before, so shall we start maybe with just a quick introduction as to who we are?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to do that. So my name is Ronak Rodrigues, or Ron. I've just recently completed a degree in economics at Queen Mary University of London, and I've also just done the PGDL at BPP University. And now I'm exploring my options to get into the role of a commercial lawyer or a corporate lawyer. And right now I'm just looking for some interview and application advice ahead of the next cycle.
Great. Definitely can help you with that today. So just so you know who I am, so my name is Steve Bloomer. So my role here at BPP is I head our career development team, which is in our future talent development team. I've worked in the careers field for quite a long time now, so around about 10 years or so. So I've worked with a lot of students who've been in similar situations to yourself, Ron. And prior to that, my background has been working in recruitment, early careers recruitment. So I've worked at law firms, so recruiting trainees. So I've been the person who's been looking at applications and writing applications and screening them out. So I could definitely help you with that process. And then my background even before that is in recruitment as well. So hopefully I picked up quite a bit of information to help you today.
Yeah, great. Sounds like I'm in good hands then.
Excellent. So in terms of how you're feeling right now, what do you feel is kind of making you feel, I suppose, really stressed about writing applications?
I think it's just a lack of clarity right now. I'm a bit uncertain on the whole process. I don't really know how to start. I think some firms have different applications, some have tests, some have a lot of automated video interviews. And I think just getting through that initial hurdle of building confidence and writing applications and getting through those initial stages will help me a lot, because I think I'm someone that once I get to the interview stage and when I get to the assessment center stage, I think I'll be better. But right now there's a lot of automation in the process and it's a bit overwhelming. So I'm wondering if you could provide some advice on that.
Completely understandable, Ron. Lots of people feel the same. So I do speak to a lot of students who also feel a little bit overwhelmed by the process. A lot of students who don't quite understand what's going to be required of them. But we could absolutely break that down and make it easier for you and hopefully take a little bit of that stress away. How's that sound?
Yeah, I'd really like that. So when it comes to submitting a personal statement or perhaps explaining my motivation for law, what would you say I should be focusing on to really make a strong answer?
Let's, I suppose, go back a bit first. So this is all going to be very personal to you. What we don't want to get into a situation of is writing a really generic answer. And that's ultimately where a lot of students do fall down, because what they often ask us for is, oh, can you tell us what you should write here? And we say, well, we can't tell you what you should write here for lots of different reasons. It needs to be yours, but also we don't know enough about you. Let's kind of go back a little bit and just tell me a little bit more about you and your journey so far. And I'm really interested into how you decided that law is going to be right for you as well.
So initially, I wanted a career where I could use my commercial side of my brain, because from a young age I studied economics at A level. I did a degree in economics. I really enjoyed modules like corporate finance, macroeconomics, corporate strategy, and I just want a career now where I can use that commercial side of my brain more. And then from pursuing the PGDL at BPP and doing modules like company law and learning about things like debt finance and how companies raise cash and the different type of agreements involved. I find that really interesting and I really want to do that going forward. So I'm now looking for a career which essentially allows me to use my commercial side as well as the law side that I've learned from BPP. So do you have any recommendations as to how I can go about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing your background as well. Really interesting background you've got. In terms of the application process, do you have much experience of applying for law firms? And if so, what's been your approach to date?
So I've done a few applications alongside PGDL, and my approach was quite a scattershot approach, I guess you could say, where I would cast quite a wide net and I wouldn't really know much about each firm. It was quite difficult for me to understand the difference between one firm and another, because when you're researching them, I think it's not super clear what exactly differentiates each one. And it's not always feasible to speak to someone at every single firm, but then there's also not a lot of information out there. And I also only did about 3 or 4 applications as well. So I'm not sure maybe if I need to apply to more or perhaps I need to take a different approach, but that was sort of my approach this cycle.
Nothing strikes fear into a recruiter or a careers person more than when you hear scattergun approach. So we definitely want to move away from that and make it a much more tailored process. And that'll absolutely improve your chances of success. We'll come on to that in a bit as well, but do you know about what the process is to qualify as a lawyer and the timeframes behind that?
No, I'm not too familiar. I know that there is the SQE route. I'm
Yeah.
familiar with that, but I don't really know what that actually looks like.
Let me explain a little bit about that then, and then we'll talk about kind of your approach
Yeah.
to go through this as well. So obviously you've done a non-law degree. Do you say you're doing the PGL or have you completed the PGDL?
Yeah, I've just completed it now. I'm just awaiting my result.
Sure. Okay. So sometimes called the law conversion course. Some providers call it different things. As you know, that's the process for anybody that does a non-law degree that wants to become a lawyer. Your next choice then is to do the SQE. So the SQE1, BPP obviously do an SQE prep course, which you may or may not know about. Then the industry's changed a little bit in that it used to be a 2-year training contract, but now they ask for 2 years qualifying work experience. And that qualifying work experience can come in different ways, and firms want different things from it. So it gets a little bit confusing here because a lot of people think you can just go and build up your experience and then qualify as a lawyer, which is true to an extent, but some firms don't like you to do that. So, for instance, some large commercial firms, if that's what you're interested in doing, what they say is that you need to do your 2 years qualifying work experience with them. So, i.e., the same way as doing a training contract, then do your SQE2 at the end of that, and then qualify as an NQ. So if that's the kind of the area that you're looking to go into, then that's what we follow. Essentially, we follow what firms do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So that's the more standard route to
Yeah.
qualification, I guess. And for non-law students like myself, usually, but it's not mandatory, I'll have to do the law conversion course. Is that correct?
Yeah, you have. Like I say, it's not mandatory, but for ourselves, people, you do need to do a conversion course because ultimately you need to have that foundation in law for the SQA. For us, we absolutely think that way.
Okay.
So I'm just kind of like thinking back to what your motivations are, because you mentioned it was a bit of a scattergun approach before, and it's good to go back and think about what you really want to get out of your legal career. So thinking about that now, what might be some of the non-negotiables that you want to experience as a lawyer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've never really done that kind of introspection and sat down and thought what it is that I really want out of a law firm. For me, I would probably want somewhere with really good training and a large training cohort and somewhere where there's lots of support available. And I know I'd also want somewhere where there's a lot of upwards mobility and lots of career progression. But other than that, it's a bit of a head scratcher, that one, because I've not really properly sat down and thought about it. And I know a lot of my friends and other students have also felt the same way as well.
This is really normal. We often don't think about what we really want to get out of our career, what's essentially going to make us happy and motivated, what's our individual idea of what success looks like. And so few of us really do that and invest the time in doing that. So here's one to take away and for us to have in our next conversation, but write a list of 6 or 7 pieces of criteria that you say are your absolute non-negotiable that you will not compromise on. Maybe then you're almost like your next piece of the criteria you would like to have. And then when you've got that, that becomes so much easier for us to think about which firms are going to be right for you. It's easy to find the firms, but there are so many of them. Matching them to you is the hard part. And then that'll make your applications a lot easier as well. Let's talk about applications themselves. So when it comes to approaching them, how did you feel when you were starting to write applications before?
I think I felt really uncertain and quite overwhelmed. I wasn't really sure if my answers were strong enough. For instance, when I was applying to an international commercial law firm, they'd asked me, why do you want to work at this firm? And I felt like I didn't really have a strong, clear-cut motivation. So I was a bit hesitant when I had submitted my application as to whether it truly was perfect. Obviously, I had checked it, I had made sure there was no spelling errors or punctuation errors, but I feel like there's a little bit more to that which I was missing, and that's perhaps why I didn't get through to that next stage.
Do you know, possibly this is one of those questions that so many people find really difficult to answer. In my time working in recruitment and working in careers, it's probably the one question still. Some really good people, without being rude, can write some really poor answers on this. And the reason they can be quite poor answers is because they're so generic. They sound like somebody else has written them, or they're not very authentic. And when firms are assessing this, they've got certain criteria that they're looking for, such as, has this person made a considered decision? So what evidence have they got? So have they visited us at a law fair? Have they been to one of the firm's open days, and what did they learn about us? What they're also looking for is your knowledge about the firm. So sometimes it feels like all firms sound the same, but they've always got something that differentiates them. So it could be about the awards that they've won. It could be about the strengths in practice areas. So whether they're tier one in certain areas. It could be geographically where they're strong. So if somebody's interested in a firm which is based across different regions, where are their strengths in those areas? Could be about some clients that they've worked with. And actually, really what they want you to do is reference the work that they've done with a client. They need to hear actual clients, specific clients. And you can find that quite easily. The firms are not shy about talking about themselves. The information is out there. So there are so many different things. But what they also really want you to do then is to say why that matters to you. So listing it is all right. It's sort of half the job. But then for each of those pieces of criteria, you've got to say why it matters to you, why that makes it a firm that you really want to work at. And that goes back to that exercise that I said before. When you're prepping for this, once you've done what really matters to you in your career and you've linked that to the firm, you've done a lot of the hard work for that question. So that's one of the ways to approach answering that question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really clear. Taking an evidence-based approach, finding a personal link and relating it back to a firm's work or their clients or their training. I think that would really help to make my application stand out more, because looking back on it, reading through some of my answers, I didn't really have that. I guess when you're trying to apply to these firms with so many thousands of applicants, that's a really good way to stand out. So yeah, I really appreciate that, Steve. Thanks so much.
No problem at all. I often hear from people who are in similar situations to yourself that are worried about they don't have a lot of experiences to go on. How do you feel about that?
I was just about to say, actually, I'm quite worried I don't really have enough experience. I feel like potentially some other applicants have done a lot with their lives. And while I was at uni, I feel like I didn't really do much with my time at university. So what do you think I could include to highlight my personal and professional development?
Again, this is so common to hear. And when we dig deep, we find actually a lot of people have got a lot of experiences, but a lot of people worry about those experiences aren't relevant. The truth is,
Yeah.
almost every experience is going to be relevant because it's giving you an opportunity to build some of the skills and attributes that the firm said they're looking for. Remember, when you're applying for a training contract or qualifying work experience, the one thing that they say that you're not being asked to do there is already be a lawyer. So if you haven't got a lot of legal experience, it doesn't matter too much. What you're being recruited on is your potential to become a fantastic lawyer. And that means that there are so many different attributes that we think make an outstanding lawyer. Things like somebody who's commercially aware, somebody who's great with clients, somebody who's well organized, somebody who's analytical, somebody who's a great communicator. And if we think back to your experiences, I wonder if you think, do you know what? Maybe there are some different areas where perhaps I built some of those experiences. What kind of things spring to mind to you when I mention that? So do you have any experiences perhaps where you've built your communication skills effectively?
Yeah, so I was part of my university's business and finance society, and I was actually a ambassador there. And I would use actually a lot of good communication skills and a lot of listening skills and good judgment skills when I would create stalls and events for my university, and I would end up driving visibility and driving awareness for that society. Is that something that could come in handy that firms would look for?
Yeah, definitely. I was just thinking as you were saying that. This is a brilliant example because this is a really great opportunity for you to show that you developed some amazing skills. So, being part of a business society, let's think first of all how that's helped build your commercial awareness. And it could be in so many different things, but it's not just about being the fact that it's part of the business society. You say you set up stalls. Did you work with any other organizations at all at that time?
Yeah, I was working with a few other banks and I was working with the other ambassadors across different societies as well because it was in collaboration with the finance society as well. There was some teamwork involved and I really enjoyed that. I think I'm finding it difficult though to speak about that in applications. So what sort of techniques would you say I could use to really showcase my experiences?
That's a really great question because it is difficult to try and shoehorn something in, and sometimes people do try and shoehorn things into the wrong place. The first thing to then is to go back to each of those experiences and think, what value did you add? So, what impact did you personally have by being part of that organization? So, what did you bring to it? So, if you said that you worked with banks, what did you do to contribute to the success of the society, do you think?
Well, I emailed those banks and asked them if they could attend. I also approached lots of new freshers that were at the fair and asked them if they were interested in business and finance. I made sure to smile and to be friendly, find something in common with them. I led them over to our stall, and overall, I think a mixture of these two things led to me raising funding from the bank, which then in turn allowed me to drive sign-ups by over 50%, which was
Wow.
really good. So I think if I write something like that, would you say that's quite strong?
Yes, very strong. It's such a good example of thinking about experiences which you look back on and you don't really value as much because it's just become a normal thing for you. But it's really been a fantastic experience to build the skills that you need. You've developed client relationship skills there as well. You've adapted the way you communicate to, in a more professional tone in a way that clients want to see. So these are so many different things that you've done. So in terms of putting them in the answer, what I would really encourage here is go back and think about as many different experiences that you've had at university, any work experience that you might have, and just think about what your key achievements have been for each of those. And that allows you to really think of good examples that can answer questions later on. It's a really good way of doing that. But it doesn't have to be work experiences. It can be your extracurricular activities, like you've just mentioned. It can be academic experiences. But these are where firms are really looking for that evidence to see whether you're going to be a great lawyer with them. That's what they really focus on. So that depth is really important.
I never know that simple experience like that actually led me to me using my adaptability and commercial awareness and my client service skills. So that's been a real eye-opener. Thanks so much, Steve.
No worries.
So I've also worked at my local pub and had a little bit of retail and hospitality experience. Is that really relevant in applying to law firms?
Absolutely relevant. Some of these experiences can be quite transformational. So, if you think about what you really learn from working in those environments, you say that you've worked in a pub, well, they can be quite stressful. Come back to my time working in a pub, I know it was quite stressful. You work in a really busy environment. You've got a lot of people who are expecting great service. They're paying for a service and they want you to deliver a great service. They're not shy to tell you if you don't. These are really important skills as a lawyer, working under pressure in hospitality. And that pressure is something that you can transfer into a legal career as well. So you will be dealing with difficult people at times, you will be dealing with pressurized situations, and you've got evidence to back up how you've done that before. Law firms love hearing that. Did you balance that up with your studies at the same time?
Yeah, so I would work there in the evenings and then complete my lectures during the day.
So that shows you're a hard worker. It shows you're resilient. It shows that you're well organized as well. So this is something that you can absolutely bring in. Likewise, if there's any retail experience, so a lot of people, when I speak to them, and I say, okay, who say they don't have a lot of experience, and we say, well, you've got retail experience, or you've worked in a shop. These are great experiences working under pressure. Sometimes working in sales environments as well. You understand the commercial pressures of your business. You're an ambassador for your organization as well. If you imagine that the recruiter who's listening to all this is extraordinarily nosy and wants to build a big picture of who you are and not this narrow focus just being about law, that's one way to think about it because that's absolutely what they do. And I can speak from experience of being a recruiter. We love finding out as much as we can about people. And it comes from so many different experiences. So the person that you are has been built from different experiences, not just a narrow group. And we want to find out as much about them as possible. How does that make you feel? Does it make you feel better that you've got the skills that we think lawyers need?
Yeah, you know what? I wasn't really that confident going in because I didn't really have much legal experience. And I thought that, obviously to go into this sort of profession, you need that legal
Mm.
experience. But now actually that you've highlighted how many transferable skills I have just from my previous experiences, I feel like I can showcase them well now in my application. And I've got quite a few things I can take away from that.
Excellent. How are you feeling about what to do next? So, in terms of making applications and knowing which firms to apply to, how are you feeling now?
Just based on what you said, definitely don't do a scattergun approach. That's not helpful. Going for a more tailored approach is beneficial. Then I think doing a little bit more introspection. And for next time, I'm going to make a list of about 6 or 7 different factors that I really want in a law firm that are non-negotiable. I'm going to look at every experience that I have, non-legal as well, and try to figure out what it is I did in those specific times, how I actually added value, even if I just worked in the retail industry or the hospitality industry or in a university society. And lastly, just not to be discouraged by rejection, I think, because that was also something that put me down last time, and just refine my applications and then just reapply.
Rejection is part of the process for many people applying for law firms, and it can be difficult to deal with. There's a lot of emotion that goes into this for a lot of people, and it can sometimes feel that you never get any progress from it. But every application form that you write is one step closer to getting that training contract. It's challenging for a reason because there's a high reward at the end of it. And also remember, each time that you go through the process, you've learned something about you, but you've also learned how to really tailor your application for the right firms going forward. Just on that, it might be worth just me going through maybe some thoughts about how you can really narrow down which firms that you want to apply to next time. So when you've got your piece of criteria and you've got your list of things that you're going to do, and then try to match it up to the firms, that can be a little bit overwhelming as well because there are so many firms out there and their literature can look quite similar. But there are a number of ways which you can do that to get your list of firms that you know that are really going to be right for you. So we talked about your non-negotiables and your criteria. I suppose the easy step then is going to legal publications and to read about firms, or even get a list of the top firms. If you know that you want the top commercial-based firms, they're easy to find. Even a Google search could help you find that in truth. So let's not reinvent a wheel. And then that's not enough though. A lot of people just think, great, I've got some information on the firm's website. It's a good place to start, but then what we really need to do is almost do a bit of an action plan to try and narrow that down to give you 2 things. Firstly, an understanding about whether it's the right firm for you, and then secondly, the depth that you will need when it comes to writing applications. So once you've created a list of the firms that you know that you like, the next thing is to think about what opportunities are there to come and visit the firm. So whether they are going to go to law fairs or whether they're going to have open days, that's one thing, and it's worthwhile spending a bit of time doing that. Secondly, the next thing that you can do is take that research further, follow them on social media so you can keep up to date with what's going on, what opportunities are available, what activities the firm are getting involved in, which clients are advising, etc. Sometimes it's worthwhile as well when you're looking into a firm and look at their practice areas. If a particular practice area stands out to you, then it's worth reading up on that area, reading up on the team that work in that area, because they'll all have their profiles on their websites. And if you think that on their profiles there are some lawyers that you think that you'd like to find out more about, it's absolutely fine to start building your network here. We start our network these days online. So if you look at, say, a lawyer's advised XXX client on the kind of deal that you're interested in, then do you know what? Head to LinkedIn, find their profile, read up about it, drop them a message. Don't just link with them, but drop them a message just saying that you've read a bit of information about the work that they've done. This is exactly the kind of thing that I'm really interested in. I'd love to connect. If it's possible, grab a couple of minutes of your time to find out more about it. That's the kind of way to help build your network, and then that gives you some information to go on as well. So it's a really good way of getting that hidden information that you can put into your applications that can really make a difference. So start to really funnel down the firms that you're really interested in, build that information. Then when it comes to writing applications, it'll become much easier to do.
Yeah, taking that extra step to connect with people and find out more about the firm's work and not just doing surface level research on the website like I was doing will really help me going forward. And that's really clear and specific advice, which I'm really grateful for. Thanks so much.
No problem. Have you had anyone look over your applications before, by the way?
No, I was mainly just doing my own self-review. Obviously, I got like a few friends and families just to check spelling and reread it and proofread it, but never actually worked with or got any expert advice before. So this has been really fantastic.
So going forward, just so you know that there are lots of people around you in your network already that will be more than happy to look over your application to make sure it's in the right place. It's our job to do that. If you want to send over your application to us for us to read and for us to give you, if you're happy, some very robust feedback on what needs to change. Sometimes we look over the same application 4 or 5 times before we think it's in a good place to go. So please let us do that. We want to make sure that you're in a really good place. So use us and use people around you. I'm always going to advertise careers teams because I think careers teams across all organisations are fantastic. So don't be a stranger, Ron.
I had no idea about that. Thanks for letting me know.
So just to summarise then, Ron, in terms of next steps. So firstly, let's go away and create your individual priority plan with your non-negotiables and the things that you would like to have. I'd say that's the most important step to do next. Secondly, start matching it against law firms that meet your criteria. Build up a research portfolio almost of those firms, which help you have the evidence that you need when it comes to making applications. Start early. Firms open for vacation schemes in September, often in the year for winter vacation schemes, October for spring summer vacation schemes, and it takes a while to answer those questions. So start early. If you do get any rejections, we'll put it down to experience. Not every firm is going to be right for you, and we'll learn from those. And just remember, that's part of the process. Every rejection is one step closer to getting the training contract that you want or the qualifying work experience that you want. So don't be discouraged. Don't be a stranger. Come to us for advice. Lawcareers.net. They've got a brilliant application hub that you can use. I'd really encourage you to go there as well. Some fantastic information. I use it still, so I'm always finding that information on there. And then just finally from me, so just best of luck with your applications and your approach, and let's hope this is the year you get the offer that you deserve.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Law Careers Net podcast in partnership with BPP University. Before you go, remember that support with your legal career doesn't stop here. Whether you're exploring your study options, preparing applications, or planning your route to qualification, BPP University offers a range of law programmes alongside dedicated careers support to help you achieve your goals. For even more practical application advice, visit Law Careers Net's application hub, sponsored by BPP University. Packed with expert guidance, insights and resources, is designed to help you stand out at every stage of the law firm recruitment process. Thanks for listening to the Law Careers Net podcast. We'll be back soon with more advice, insights and career stories to help you succeed in the legal profession.